Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar today, focused on winning sales flows with techniques using instant design. I'm Randy with Hover. I'm on the product team here, and I am super thrilled to be your host today. We're joined by two fantastic construction business leaders who are revolutionizing their sales process with instant design. First up, Ken Webb and Tony Munos. Today, they're going to share their firsthand experiences on how instant design has transformed their sales flow at their companies. And then we should have some time afterwards for questions. So feel free to have questions to kind of drop them in the QA as we're having our discussion panel. All right, so without further ado, we can kick this off. Go ahead and there we go. Okay, first up, let's have an intro from Ken. He is from Window World of St. Louis. Ken, can you briefly introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your company and what you do there?
Yeah, again, Ken Webb. I'm based in St. Louis. We actually have 6 locations across the Midwest between Kansas, Missouri, and Illinois. I'm the director of operations, so I run the teams from front end to back end, sales all the way through service, warranty, install, all of it. I just crossed my 20th year with Window World. So I've done everything from run a sales lead to schedule an install appointment to install windows to run, you name it, I've done it at this point with the company. And now I'm taking care of all the people that are still down in the trenches to this day with our homeowners and installers and all that stuff.
Thanks, Ken. Yeah, 20 years is quite an achievement. So thank you so much for being here today. Up next, we have Tony from Martin Home Exteriors. Tony, can you tell us a little bit about your background and your business?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you for having me. Honored and really humbled for the opportunity to just give you some visibility to, what we do, how we do it, the teams that we have, really spearheading the installs from the siding perspective, not only on the residential side, which is home to Martin Home Exteriors. It's a company that I own. We've been in business since 1995. We're one of the elite preferred contractors for, James Hardy. And then on the commercial side, we have Munoz Suarez Construction, which again is siding heavy. I am a licensed general contractor, been doing this for about 15 years. And prior to this, I was a sales leader for the life science category. So I've had an opportunity to really, bring in a lot of the soft skills from the corporate world. And with that, ultimately bringing in technology to allow us to have much more engaging conversations with homeowners and with developers and with other contractors. And so I'm honored and humbled and really excited to have an opportunity to walk you through how we're using instant design throughout our sales process.
Awesome. Thank you both so much. Yeah, we're very excited to have you both here today. It's great when we have folks from different parts of the country come to be able to talk about, like how they're using our technology for success. So I'm excited to jump in. All right, so let's go to our first discussion point, growing the visual economy. I'm sure you guys know just how important this is today. With the changes in being able to talk to your customers that want to be able to see, because seeing is believing. So what are the challenges when it comes to visualizing those projects? Like, what would you say in your sales projects, particularly when it comes to visualizing for clients or closing the deal effectively? Like, what are those biggest challenges? Ken, do you want to take the first answer?
Sure. I think the, challenge is, I don't know if it's a challenge because instant design has done a phenomenal job for us. just simply helping overcome that challenge. Because, when it comes to siding, it's a big deal, right? Roofs are big deals, but, you got a couple of different color options, right? It's like, the biggest stark change is I went from a brown roof to a black roof, or vice versa, right? It's not a major visual change. And you have homeowners that they have this idea in their head. They saw something in a magazine, or they saw an image online, or they just rolled past their, a neighborhood and saw a house that they were like, man, it's so different than what our house looks like right now. And I like it so much, but our house is it's cut up a little differently. So would what I see there translate onto our house? And then you start to take, they start to get emotional about it and get excited about a change, but then they start to get very, very nervous about, well, I don't know. It's that whole, like, some years back, painting your kitchen red became like the in thing to do, right? And there was red kitchens everywhere, right? And that was a big, like, but at least, when you paint your kitchen red, it's like, well, I don't like it, let's repaint it. Costs a few $100s, but big deal. You try to make a stark change like that when it comes to siding, and it's like, okay, now I'm thousands or tens of thousands of dollars into this. I can't change this now. It's not the fault of the contractor. I signed it, I decided, and now it didn't translate. Instant design has solved that problem in essence, because now you can walk in the door, take your picture of the front of the house. I know we're going to talk about the process here in a little bit, so I won't go too far into it, but you can then you can interact with them and put odd colors on their house that that they're like, I don't know what a brown would look like, I don't know what a red would look like, let's just do it. And in the click of a button, they have a more visual, I know there's visualizers out there, that do a perfectly fine job, but it's a stock photo. It's you can't go down the road of like, well, what would white corners look like if I got a dark charcoal, stuff like that, where you can keep that emotional investment with the customer of what it's going to look like. And, they can then in turn make a more informed, confident decision on, we're going to do something, we just don't know what it is. And then when we didn't have this, it was more, they would go the safe route and they wouldn't, and it was just kind of a ho-hum. Yeah, I mean, we're getting new siding, but it's going to improve the life, the life expectancy of our home and make it more weather efficient and all that kind of stuff. But it's not going to give them the emotional wow factor from the curb appeal that keeps them tied in and keeps them excited about what's about to happen to their home.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, customers aren't picking their homes out of a Sears catalog anymore. This is like totally the age of Pinterest, or the trends are changing so fast. So it is nice to have a tool where you're like, it's quick, it's showing them their real house. There's that emotional aspect that you talked about, which I think is really important, because you obviously want to show your customers that you care about their vision, and being able to do it quickly is super important. So yeah, that makes tons of sense. Tony, what about you? What challenges were you facing for visualizing like customers' projects before you used instant design, and maybe how has it changed for you in this visual economy?
Yeah, thank you. I think for us, whenever we go into the homeowners, home, we go in with the mindset around how do we bridge the gap between what the customer wants to what we can actually produce, right? And in doing that, it's important to offer them options. You oftentimes go into a homeowner's, setting or their home, and they're filled with ideas, right? And sometimes, you get paralysis by analysis, right? They're less likely to make a decision because they have all of these ideas. And so they rely on us as the expert to be able to not make a decision for them, but ultimately walk with them to match what that vision is to what we can actually produce for them. And so we're almost a guide to allow them to get to materialize. And if you want to use the word visualize and or manifest, it's important for us to be able to get them there. And this tool allows us to do that visually, right? We can talk through the installation, the assembly, all the things that go with the installation. But how do we get them to feel, right? While also seeing what that change will look like. And so it's a kind of a combination of both. And so we act as that conduit that allows them to get closer to what they envision in a way that is, I guess there's almost like a partnership between us and the homeowner. We often say we're going to be an extension of your family for the next 30 or 40 days while we're here installing, whether it's siding, any other scope that falls under our responsibility. We ultimately walk with them hand in hand to ensure that we get them there.
Yeah, and definitely a partnership, especially when there's such a big investment that goes into these projects. Obviously, you want the customer to feel comfortable. If you don't mind me asking, Ken and Tony, what did you use prior to finding Hover's Instant Design when you're trying to visualize a project for a customer? Were you making in-house slides? Were you using like sample boards?
Tony, you want to start this one?
Sure. All right. Thanks, Ken. Yeah. For us, we essentially, built a PowerPoint deck of previous projects that we had that potentially matched. And the key word, the operative word is potentially. But I think that we were missing out on an opportunity to bring in the customer so that they can feel part of the process as much as me bringing them the solution, right? How do we bring the customer in there? And so we were using a lot of our own projects to help them see what their project could be. But we were also using a lot of the manufacturer, collateral, a lot of the different Pantones and, sales collateral for whether it's James Hardie or any other, window manufacturer, any cladding manufacturer, any, patio manufacturer. And so we were using a lot of times material that was not built by us to help convey a message that they were hiring the right contractor. But with Instant Design, now we get to integrate the homeowner so that they can feel part of the process as they become an active part in designing how their home will look prior to the project starting.
Yeah, I love that. What about you, Ken? Were you using like physical samples or maybe just like an in-house presentation?
Yeah, I mean, it's not far off, what Tony just said. You got now, I know Tony does more James Hardie, where we're more in the vinyl market. But similar aspect to the fan deck, right? That has some arbitrary blank house that you slide the slide behind it, and it's like, oh, this is what that house would look like if it was red, or here's the gray, here's the okay. I mean, same thing though, as far as leveraging manufacturers that had a tool that you could change some colors, but again, you're talking like 4 stock photos of like, here's a single story, here's a 2-story, here's a split level, and it's like, okay, that's it. Or and then the same thing where we had a big PowerPoint of before and afters of work that we have done, which is still, is still a powerful tool, because it shows, then it really, it shows, hey, look, here's some of the work that we've done, that we do good work, which is, an important aspect as well. But when it comes to the design stuff, I completely agree with Tony. You have to be part of that journey with them, as far as, you can throw them some stock photos and you can throw them some stuff, but if they're vested enough in potentially re-siding their house, they've researched, they have an idea in their head what their vision is of what their house is what they want their house to look like. And it's just our job to help give them the information and give them the tools to be confident in that investment, and in that, whether it's a color scheme or whether it's a, heck, I mean, they could go from a vertical siding to a horizontal siding. You could keep the same exact color, but go this way versus that, and it changes the look of the house completely. Panel size, big, go from a 4-inch to a hardy 7-inch plank, right? Totally changes the house. And this tool helps immensely, helps us show them the vision. And then once they're invested in that vision, all you have to do is do good work, and you're going to have a happy customer.
It's like not relying on those kind of impersonal things to get you through, or the hope that they're going to trust your judgment, but like really being invested in the present, because you're right, they're going to come with ideas. That's just the reality of the market these days. They're going to come with, probably what they already know from research and trends and stuff like that. Great answers, guys. Thanks so much. Let's move on to the next portion of this, which is the actual design tool. So Ken, can you walk us through how you've integrated instant design into your process? Like, how does it specifically help with your initial client meetings and your presentations?
I mean, it hasn't changed. Like, it hasn't changed necessarily what we do. It just, there again, it just replaced moderately archaic technology, right? The fan deck, the stock photo, the PowerPoint, right? We let our homeowners know that we're going to be there a couple of minutes before the appointment. We're going to take some photos of the exterior of the house. Let's just get that out of the way and be done with it. And then while that's all going on in the background, of course, we knock on the door, let them know we're there. We don't just start walking around us, but we do let them know that at the time we set the appointment, that we're going to try to knock those 8 photos out right out of the gate. We're going to try to get those done, because I want those salespeople to have that process sent to Hover as quickly as possible. Because if we do get lucky and it completes while we're still there in the house, you can take instant design to the second level then, and you can go a full 3D rendering of their house. And you can start really getting into the weeds with them and really getting them excited about what their house is going to look like, right? I mean, we had one I was thinking about this example. Standard 2-story house, nothing special, subdivision, your standard shotgun house, right? Customer was dead set. They wanted this coastal sage. It's a greenish gray color. We're on the instant design. We're on the front of the house. They're looking at it, and man, they are loving coastal sage. They are just into it. What they didn't realize until the 3D came up was on the front of the house, they also had a 2-car garage that was white. They had 8 windows on the front of the house that were white. They had white banisters, and it broke that green up. We were able to get that 3D rendering going, And the first thing they were like, whoa, that's a lot of green. Oh, I didn't think about green on the side of the house, like where there's no windows. It's just a wall of green. So I know this is more pointed towards instant design, but that's why we do that, where we let the homeowner know we're going to take photos before we even walk in the house. And then we send them over so that we can start that process. Sometimes we get lucky, sometimes we don't. It's okay. It's not a deal breaker if we don't, because we have instant design that we can go to immediately, right? So then, normal get to know you type stuff that every salesperson should do, create a rapport with the customer, asking the questions of, I get it. You've got me out here for a siding estimate, but is there a need, or is this, you just want sort of a redesign there? Everything's fine on the house. Because maybe they've got a major leak problem. Maybe they've got, some other stuff that, like Tony talked about before, that, I want to make sure that I'm equipped. If they've got a major leak problem, I want to make sure I'm equipped to fix that problem, and not just throw siding on there and then it's still leaking. And they're like, well, wait a minute, we just spent X number of thousands of dollars, and yes, my house looks pretty, but it didn't solve my problem, right? So we want to make sure we do a needs analysis from the homeowner, to know, so that we can make sure that we're equipped to do, in the end, a final turnkey project for them. But then in the space, once we know that we're good to go, then we go to the kitchen table and we start talking. What's your, then you pull up the iPad, just like is right there in the photo, right? And you pull up their house. Okay, here's your house right now. What's the vision? Don't go crazy with it. Tell me, there is no wrong answer here. Let's put it in here, and let's, and the other nice thing that since we started using instant design, the hover team has been fantastic about working with us to make us more efficient on the instant design, where we can go in and favorite our products so that, we can be more efficient in our clicks, to where a homeowner's not sitting there watching us scroll through thousands of different, options of manufacturers and this and that. And they've been phenomenal when it comes to being able to narrow down, the clicks, so that we can get our homeowner to, I want to, I'd love to see what a vertical siding looks like on our house, or something like that. And we can go right to it. Okay, well, here's our whole vertical, option list. And you're just walking them through that. And, the two things that I always talk to, our salespeople about, especially when it comes to siding and entry doors, is we sell a lot of windows, a lot of them. Windows aren't an emotional purchase. Windows are more of a need-based purchase, or an energy efficient, they want to become more energy efficient in their home or something like that. There are many options with windows, but not like siding. Siding is such an enormous beast when it comes to doing that, right? So windows are not an emotional purchase. Roofs are not an emotional purchase. You don't buy a roof just because you're like, I don't like my brown roof. I mean, don't get me wrong, it happens sometimes, but on the norm, you buy a roof because you need a roof. Something happened and you need a roof, right? Siding and entry doors are emotional purchases. You have to elicit emotion. If they're ho-hum, they're gonna be like, let me think about it. If you get them emotionally invested in what their house could look like, and just being so proud right there of this, just, oh my God, this is a great example of, walking, they come home to their house every day and they're like, oh, it's beige. It's a very nice home, but it's, and then they go over here and, and they're like, oh my God, look at this, it's just, you create that emotion, and you can that's where they're going to buy in. Entry doors the same way. Nobody looks, the first thing you look at when you walk up to a house is the entry door. And that's another, where you can, the selection's a little bit different on entry doors, but you can change the color of the entry door. You can change some of the stuff on the entry door that you could get a whole house buy-in, but you have to create that emotion. The emotion is everything when it comes to this.
Yeah.
And instant design helps you so much create that emotion where they go, oh my gosh, that's the house I want. I want to walk into that house every day. I want my neighbors to stare at that house every day.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And it's such a unique approach to be able to come to the appointment and you're collecting the measurements, but you're also kicking off design and possibly closing the sale like right in one go. It's amazing. Tony, I know that you have a little bit more of a different approach where instant design is fitting into your interactions kind of, post leaving the house. Can you run through that quickly? And then we're going to move on to the next question so that we can keep things moving along.
Sure. Yeah. For us, we never call close where we have an opportunity to walk them through potential problem areas in the house where we have to make repairs with respect to the sheathing, moisture protection, framing, siding. It's just a lot, right? And so for us, we rely on our marketing folks internally to build that relationship, right? Because for us, I think it's important to have multiple points of contact that extend beyond just the initial consult that either myself or any of our sales folks had, right? And so how do we turn over that lead with, copious notes so that our folks internally, in this case, for us, it's Abril Moreno, who's done an incredible job, that trust and that relationship with the homeowner to then ultimately build that design and really match the specificity that customer is looking for. So we go to the home, we take the initial consultation, we take a lot of notes, we then have a one-off conversation with Abril, who will then reach out to the homeowner, have a separate conversation with respect to what siding, what color, what trim, dimensions on trim, whether it's 4 1/4, 5 1/4, 4-inch, 6-inch. So all of those things happen outside of a traditional stitch. We truly embody the design aspect, and we would not be in a position to do this without Hover. Technology that allows these conversations to happen seamlessly, allows these conversations to happen so that the customer can feel, not just see, what the design is. And our, team internally led by Abril does an incredible job with that. And so we produce a lot of pictures, and you see now the dialogue between the homeowner, between Abril and her team, and that does something that I think really differentiates us here in Jacksonville. It's a highly competitive market, but how do we do this in a way that we now become truly the solution for this homeowner? I'd venture to say we differentiate ourselves not only with the experience that we have and the number of installations that we've done in the last 30 years, but now we bring it and we make it personal. How do we get one person on our team, in this case Abril, really align and connect at a deep level with the homeowner to provide that solution and extend that solution that I offered on that initial consult, but now we're doing it with a Zoom presentation, a webinar where we're kind of walking them through it and making those changes and making sure that the homeowner is involved. Okay. And then, last but not least is we hear this a lot, right? Oftentimes we have competitors who go to the home, they take pictures, they may measure, whatever it is that they're using to price out job without making it, without integrating the homeowner into the solution. And so this allows us to, again, differentiate what we do by getting closer to that customer and making sure that we convey that message around teamwork, collaboration, making sure that we're there to address and answer any questions. And so these are all things that I think really bode well and has really differentiated, you know, what we do in our team over the last 30 years here in Jacksonville, Florida.
Yeah, I love that. And I've worked with a Brill personally, and I just love the approach of like having you, Tony, go in as the sales expert, talk to the customer, get ideas from them, and then a Brill really kind of hits it home and is able to send them like options and really build that relationship. And I think it's such a cool tactic that there's like, we can see how Ken and his team is winning at the kitchen table with, you know, this like really robust appointment and like driving all that excitement. And it's also working for you, Tony, on the flip side, where it's like, we're going there, we're making connections, we're getting scope, but you're handing it off to somebody and it's still just as successful. So like, I love seeing that there's these two different paths. And not just two, I mean, there's many more, but like, it's so interesting to see like how there's different, you know, tactics that are working for everybody. Moving on to the next.
And just Randy, let me just add one thing, because I think this is important. We can talk through words, right? How do we differentiate ourselves versus everybody else, right? But I think the true testament for why we are able to, you know, complete the number of jobs that we do every single year for 30 years so successfully is the fact that we have really good people. People. And in this case, a Brill is another, you know, key lever that we use to close these sales, right? One is my expertise, two is our partnership with James Hardy, three is our partnership with Hover, and four is how do I have a Brill integrate herself, you know, not forcefully, but integrate herself through her experience and through her knowledge into the decision-making process for a lot of these homeowners. And that's what's happening. And that's how we continue to differentiate what we do. Sorry, I felt it was important to really share that.
Yeah, I agree. And Abril deserves all of the kudos because she's amazing to work with.
100%.
100%. Okay, so our next segment is on the fun side. We're going to talk about maybe some real customer stories. I know Tony, I had grabbed these photos from Abril about a project that you guys did. And so obviously on the left, we have the before, we have the Hover Instant Design where we're visualizing some siding. Can you maybe share a little bit about, you know, how you've surprised and delighted customers by being able to show them what it's going to look like and then kind of, you know, hitting it home? Or do you have like a specific story you want to share?
Yeah, I can even speak to this specific example. You know, when we show the customer what Instant Design produces, you know, some of the pushback, you know, sometimes is, well, that's a rendering and I think it's going to be hard for you to produce that. And I say, please challenge me to produce that. And if I'm falling short, discount the price of the install by 25%. And so obviously we get, you know, we have some fun with this, but the reality is that now I have a guide and our crews have a guide to ultimately, you know, use a proof source on what that job needs to look like when we're done.
Yes.
You know, there's no room for error here, room for variance, right? And so these are things that, again, allow us to integrate the customer so that they can visually see and feel what that's going to look like. And you know, we take a lot of pride in all of our reviews and all the things that go with that. And just using this technology allows us to really enhance and really provide the customer and the homeowner with an opportunity to say, hey, you'll see it on our, you know, on our Google reviews, is like, I challenge Tony to really produce in real life real time what they showed me on instant design and those instances and examples in our use. And this just makes it easy. And we like to be put under pressure, right? And I think that when we have an opportunity to leverage the technology that Hover has perfected, and I can then take our experience and my experience as a contractor to really ensure that the output of what's being shown on a computer screen is actually being realized in the actual homeowner facade in this case. So this just augments what we do, what we talk about, throughout the entire sales process, throughout the entire sales cycle, right? We talked about this when we first got here. This is what this would look like through the cadence of the install. You see exactly how we were able to potentially get there. Now we're at the last inspection, on the final inspection, and you could see exactly what I produced even before you secured the job. When we secured the job, that's exactly what you get now, as we've built all the cadences to ensure that you get what you agreed and what I agreed to give you at the end of the install. So I don't know, again, just more kudos to the team and to the technology that we get to use, because that's the reality. We get to use this so that we can augment what we do for a lot of our homeowners.
Yeah, I love this specific example is, it's almost like a subtle kind of upgrade. We're not going from, brown to bright pink or anything like that, but you can see in the before photo, there's a vision of upgrading their siding. And in the Hover instant design, when I flip to the next page, it's almost spot on. And so really being able to instill that confidence and say what you see is what you're going to get, just probably wins the customer every time. I have to venture to guess that for both Ken and Tony, that this has increased the confidence that your customers have in your company as you use it more.
I totally agree. And we often go into a lot of these sales calls. Our desire is when oftentimes we'll get into a conversation with the homeowner where they're sharing a nightmare of an experience with a previous contractor.
Yes.
And our call to action is to make sure that by the time we leave that project, the perception that they have for the industry is completely changed. And
yes.
and this tool allows us to do that, because now we're held accountable to ensure that what they agree to is exactly what they receive. Which here, I'm sure Ken hears about this too, they had an idea in mind and the contract they initially agreed to. And this gives us an opportunity to integrate the homeowner along with us and of course our crews to ensure that they get exactly what they signed up for.
That leads me into my next question or topic is what's your one piece of advice for integrating instant design into your pitch or into your sales process? If you had to call out one thing, what would it be for the people that are watching today? Ken, do you want to take a first stab?
Excuse me. I don't know that there's necessarily advice, if you will. To me, once I saw it and walked through it with Napur, who's awesome, by the way, it was a no-brainer to me. And I to go back to what Tony was talking about, as far as part of the beauty of the technology is the homeowner, in competition, right? They had somebody else over that was bidding their siding, and they used the old technology that we used to use, right? Standard photo, stock this, stock that, right? And then we walk in with instant design and we start doing this stuff, and they're like, okay, yeah, yours is a little better than theirs, but the reality is you just made my home the stock photo, and it's still just, arbitrary. Instant design, the fact that instant design is extremely accurate when it comes to proportions of, you can see the difference when, like I said earlier, when, if I'm standing out there with a vinyl siding product at, call it a 4.5-inch clapboard, and then, we jump over to a hardy 7-inch plank, it takes that, it proportions it out correctly, right? You could almost to a T count the boards going up the ladder up to the soffit, and I'd be willing to bet you're within a half, and the color selection is extremely accurate, just like you saw in those photos that Tony provided, right? So I don't know that I don't know that there's one piece of advice as far as integrating it. When I saw it and when it was a no-brainer to me. It was like, this replaces that. We are doing this already at the table. This replaces that and makes us different because not everybody's using it. There's a lot of companies out there that are using Hover just to verify salespeople's measurement, right? Salesperson, measure person, whoever it is. They go out there, they measure it, they get you okay, here's how many squares the house is, here's how much, here's what your footprint is, here's this, here's that. And now you've got Hover to verify, to utilize technology to verify those numbers, right? And it's awesome, it's great. Tons of companies are using that, right? They're using that portion of it. Insurance companies all over the place are using Hover to make sure, because they don't necessarily have to go out there and spend a whole lot of time. They can do this, they can write an estimate, they can say, okay, we're doing this, we're writing a check and see you later, right? A lot of companies are doing that. That necessarily doesn't set you apart. What sets you apart is this instant design, because they're not utilizing that. They're, whether it's Tony and his design team doing it after the initial meeting, or my team where we're doing it right there at the table with them. And then what we will also do on top of that is we've got them if we get the full download to happen while we're there, we have no problem opening that up and starting to play with the whole house. But what we will also do after the fact is we will get the visual of the instant design, screenshot it, email it to them right there in the house. So that they've got it. They've got a screenshot of it. And then after the fact, we will go through and do the full 3D rendering, and we'll download that and send that to them as well and say, okay, hey, you still have the instant design that I emailed you from the appointment, but now why don't you look at the 360 just to make sure that understand this is what the whole house is going to look like. So we will take it one step further when it comes to the entire 3D design as well. But I mean, as far as advice goes, I don't know that I have advice. I just think it fits so well. It was a no-brainer to me.
Yeah. No, I love the idea of keeping it in the Hover ecosystem with integrating the use of the 3D model as well, which is great. And it just goes to show that, everybody's using Hover differently in their process, but it's all, it's all the same.
Nobody's wrong.
Exactly.
Many ways to skin a cat.
What works for you?
Right.
Okay, I'm going to see if I can grab at least one Q&A question that maybe you guys can answer quickly. We've got I don't know, maybe a minute or two, but you guys have done such a fantastic job. We've got a couple of questions. It looks like one of the questions is, does Instant Design use real products on the images? And I think you already answered this, Ken, that you can customize your catalog to exactly what you sell.
Yep.
Let's see here. Can you make changes to only the siding or windows, or will it update the whole house? Pop quiz, Ken, Tony?
Yes.
Tony, you want this one? I know we both know.
Yeah, I mean, you can make changes to one side of the house and then completely design a separate, wall. You can have if there's a house with four sides, you can have each side designed differently if you want to. And
you can incorporate if you've got a front, like one of the pictures, doesn't matter, where you've got a gable over the garage door. you could throw scallop or shake or something like that on the gable, and then still run your horizontal siding below that. You can change the colors of the corners. You can change the color of the J channel. You can change the color of the fascia, the soffit. It's extremely designable. Extremely.
Yeah. I love that. Well, thank you both for coming today. I'm sure we could just talk forever, but 45 minutes seems like our limit for today. Thank you, Ken, so much for coming and representing Window World. Thank you, Tony, for coming and representing your company, Martin Home, under the Munos Suarez umbrella. Thank you both so much for coming and presenting and being my panelists. I really appreciate you talking about how instant design has worked well for your businesses. And, you know, again, I hope everybody has a good rest of their day, and we'll follow up with a recording of this session.
Sounds great. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you.